I want to start by playing a clip of this extraordinary moment in the Washington National Cathedral yesterday, where Bishop Marianne Edgar Buddy, who was officiating, decided to suddenly turn it into a political rally. Let's take a listen.
Hello, welcome to the review. Thanks for clicking on the link. I appreciate it. We're watching Piers again today, and they're about to go to the cathedral where Trump went to mass the day after his inauguration. And this lady, the bishop, who has bigger nuts than I have, really laid it on Trump pretty hardcore during the service. I'm serious. This lady must have balls of steel.
Name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people.
She asked him in the name of God.
In our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families. Some who fear for their lives.
Well, Trump has responded. He took a while. His first response was didn't really say very much when he was asked by the media. And then he said the so-called bishop who spoke at the National Prayer Service on Tuesday morning was a radical left hardline Trump hater. She brought her church into the world of politics in a very ungracious way. She was nasty in tone and not compelling or smart. She failed to mention the large number of illegal migrants that came into our country and killed people. Many were deposited from jails and mental institutions. It's a giant crime wave that's taking part in the USA. Apart from her
I think I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure for a church to maintain its tax-exempt status, they're not allowed to do politics. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I thought that was part of the deal. They get their tax-exempt status, but they stay out of politics. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Let me know in the comments.
Appropriate statements. The service was a very boring and uninspiring one. She's not very good at her job. She and her church owe the public an apology. So I would say a fairly predictable response from President Trump, Riley. But I've got to say, I was pretty staggered that at such a moment when you got a new president, whoever it is, for the bishop to suddenly launch into what was very clearly a pretty partisan political speech, which bore very little relation to the fact that all Trump had said was there are two genders, male and female. That's it. That doesn't seem to me to be leading directly to young kids all over America fearing for their lives, unless I missed something.
No. And before I even answer that, Trump put out that tweet at about midnight. So the 12 a.m. mean tweets are back in full effect. I know. Yeah, when I first saw this video, I saw it in the same format that you just showed. It looked like a stitch almost, like one side and one side. And I thought it was a skit until I realized, of course, that it wasn't. As you mentioned, Trump's EO that he signed, which I would imagine as this is why this bishop went into this parade in the way that she did, it merely just defined male and female and indicated those are the only two sexes that exist. I would love to ask this bishop, okay, if there are more, then what are they? I know you've had Harry Sisson on this show. I love that clip of you, Piers, asking him, what are, that you say there are more than two genders. Right. What are the other genders? And of course, there's never an answer. So it's wild to me that we live in this time where we have to applaud such decisive and executive action. Truthfully, I don't want to, because it's like we're applauding someone for saying that the sky is blue. But nonetheless, that is the point of decay that we have reached as a society. So it's a big victory, and it's certainly worth celebrating. And I think this female bishop is just your classic progressive pastor, quick to speak of God's grace, but hesitant to condemn sin. And so preaching half of the truth isn't preaching the gospel at all.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Smith, I just found it extraordinary that she went to kind of DEFCON 3. There are children all over America fearing for their lives simply because Donald Trump said there's male and female out there. That's it. That's how we're now going to deal with this issue. That's how people are going to be referred to. How does that lead? Where's the correlation to a load of American kids terrified for their lives?
Well, I mean, look, and I just think this represents so much of what we've had to deal with insane wokeism over the last decade at least, and what has just been rejected by the American people. And you nailed it, Piers, right? It's that this is clearly a political speech. This is how the woke do it, right? It's clearly a political speech, but you present it as if you're transcending above politics, and it's just about morality, but obviously it's not. And look, the two major political issues that she was hitting on, number one, I mean, I completely agree with Riley on this. And if humanity survives for another 50 years, when historians write books about this time period, it will just be about the mass psychosis and how madness just swept, culture. And the stuff is just it's so ridiculous. And again, like the example of you asking that kid how many genders there are. Nobody can answer the most simple questions when it comes to the trans thing. Like the most basic one of why can't I identify as a horse?
Yeah.
If objective biology doesn't exist anymore.
No, I've actually been on this. I identified on International Women's Day.
You can.
Several years ago, I identified
go for
as
it, Dave.
Well,
Let's hear you
I can go better. I can go better. I identified as a.
Can I also? Okay.
Well, Dave, the point I was going to make was on International Women's Day a couple of years ago, I identified on the show as a black lesbian because, frankly, if self-identity is limitless, why can't I?
Exactly, Piers. And let me just, by the way, to your point of your response of I can identify as a horse. Yes, okay, I can. And the correct reaction to that should be for everyone else to. You're an insane person.
You're not a horse.
And you're also a person, a human being, not a
just
horse.
for the record,
but anyway, and then with the whole this whole weaponized empathy about immigration. I mean, look, Piers, I'm sure you've seen some of the most recent polls.
The left has been doing weaponized compassion for years. They are the arbiters of compassion, and everyone else is just mean old white people.
Americans agree by super majorities that they reject the de facto open borders of the Biden administration. And so to make this political speech while the guy, which is against the politics of the guy who just got elected, and also against what has been wokeism and open borders have been rejected by super majorities of the American people. And so to make this speech in this moment was just totally inappropriate. And just, I don't know, there's something about it that I find disgusting. This thing where you just hide behind there are people who are afraid and the trans kids are afraid. Yeah, you know what? There are other people who are afraid that these progressive maniacs are going to propagandize their children more with this gender nonsense. And I'm a little bit more concerned for those people. So
ain't that the truth? And that's exactly what they've been doing in schools and these drag show reading hours and all that crap. They are absolutely hurting our children. Now something like 5% of kids are trans when it was 0.1%. I mean, the numbers have just gone through the roof, and it's all because of this propaganda. All of it. It's really gross.
We had an election. We've had national debates about this. That stuff has been rejected again by super majorities of the American people.
It has. Ali, what are your thoughts on this? I really did think it was hit completely the wrong mark. She may feel all these things, but to just start, it seemed to me the biggest problem the Democrats had in the last 4 years, culminating in the terrible beating they got in the election, was that they kept scolding the American people.
Yeah, and then this psycho crazy bishop scolds the president during mass in public after he just won an election, including the popular vote. They're just nuts. They're all nuts. They have to be. They have to be insane to think that that's okay to pull something like that off.
Constant scolding, culminating in Barack Obama scolding other black Americans. If you don't vote for Kamala because she's black, effectively, then you're betraying black people. It's this constant, self-righteous, high moral scolding. And they took a terrible drubbing in the election. Trump's back with a bang. And rather than be clever and move on and evolve as a party and work out how to find the next Bill Clinton or someone like it who can actually take this head on and be a proper opponent, it seemed to me they've learned nothing. You say you're a Democrat now. Did you enjoy what that bishop was saying? Or did you not think like I did? Wow, have you not got the memo that people are fed up with this stuff?
Okay, let me start off by saying the slippery slope argument is not a real argument of, oh, people are going to start identifying as horses. That
That's
is
not the
reminiscent
argument I
of
made.
the
That's
gay
not what I
marriage
said.
era. That is what you said. The gay marriage
No, it's
era
not.
where people
I
said
did
that people
not
were going
say
to
that.
start marrying their
It's
pets.
a
It's
logical,
ridiculous.
listen, it's not, again, just to not strawman me. I'm making a logical analogy.
Yeah.
I'm not equating the two things. And I'm not saying that transgenderism will lead to people identifying as a horse. The point is to attack the logic. What's wrong with me saying I'm a horse? You now have to respect my identity as a horse. What's wrong with it is that objective reality
You're not
exists.
a horse. Yeah,
exactly.
The point is, the point is, Ali, limitless self-identity means that anyone, anywhere can identify as whatever they like. And the reason it matters is that this goes right to the heart of the trans debate, say, in women's sport. I want trans people to have the same rights to equality and fairness as everybody else on this panel, including me, right? What I don't want is women's rights being trashed in the process. And when you allow people who were born by the
Right. As soon as so they pass reparations somewhere, guess what? I'm now a black woman. All right. I'm a black woman now. You have to pay me reparations. It's insanity.
biological male with all the advantage in terms of power and strength and speed and so on, when you allow them to simply put their hand up and say, I'm now a woman and I want to compete against women in women's sport, and then they start performing immeasurably better comparative to how they were performing against other biological men, then you realize the problem. And this is why the Democrats, one of the reasons they lost. That last ad that Trump did, Kamala's for they, them, Donald Trump's for you. One of the most effective ads in modern times. There's a reason, because most people actually went, yeah, he's got a point. We're fed up with this crap. So did you, honestly, Ali, when you heard that, Bishop?
She's not going to admit that all this crap is wrong. She's not going to. She's a Democrat until she comes to it freely, like Anna Kasparian has, and some of the others out there that have. She's never going to admit it. She's just going to go with the talking points, just like the rest of them. No common sense, no logic, just party before truth. Every time, party before truth.
Did you think, great, really needed to be said, or did you slightly wince and went, we haven't got the right memo here?
No, I really respected what she said, actually, and I think she has a lot more guts than a lot of politicians do. Not many people get to sit and...
There you go. See? No, I respect what she said. It was totally fine. Yeah, it's great for her to do that in church to the newly elected president who was elected by popular vote. Totally fine. This person is not a fair-minded person. She's not. She's a Democrat. She's part of the party. Doesn't matter how dishonest it is. It's going to be truth before party or party before truth every single time. No matter how demented it sounds, no matter how wrong you can prove it to be, it's going to be party before truth every time.
And talk to the vice president, the president, and their families face to face like that. And so she could have easily just, put her head down and complied. And I think they needed to hear what she said, whether they wanted to or not. They clearly didn't. But I truly believe it was important for them to hear that. And it shows just how truly cruel, callous, and anti-Christian that these people actually are. And another point is that trans people.
No, what's cruel is telling people agreeing with their mental illness. That's what's cruel. That is what's cruel. Somebody is showing a mental illness, which body dysmorphia is a mental illness. It always has been. And you say, yes, you are X. That's cruel instead of getting them help. That's what's cruel.
People have existed since the beginning of time. They will exist. They'll always exist. The Republican Party's current position is that there are only two genders and trans people.
That's another one of their stupid arguments. Trans people have existed since the beginning of time. Well, they've been mentally ill since the beginning of time. There has been mental illness since the beginning of time. That is the stupidest argument I've ever heard.
People don't exist, or it's made up. And that's just not true. There are a lot of transgender kids that genuinely are scared. If you haven't met one, just say that. But I have met one, I've met many, and I have transgender friends.
Nobody's saying it's made up. We're saying it's a mental illness, and it is a mental illness. When you think it's necessary to cut off your breast or your penis, it's a mental illness. It's not normal. It's not compassionate to help the person cut their penis or their breasts off. That's not compassion. It's cruel. It's cruelty.
And they are scared because there's a target on their back by this incoming administration. And I understand the Republican Party's concern about men and women's sports. That makes it sound very scary and perhaps dangerous. But I think there is a common sense solution to having inclusivity and not isolating transgender kids from their friends or sports that they want to play in high school that aren't even at the competitive level, because we simply think that they just don't belong. And there is a common
Why
sense
can't they
solution
just compete against their biological sex like everybody else has to? I mean, let me bring in Clay Travis quickly on this, because it's a big issue, this. I just felt like, wow, here we got Miss Bishop, just didn't get the stop scolding everyone memo and just sounded ridiculous.
Yeah, and I give credit to Riley, and I think Outkick has really been outspoken on this, but when she had to swim against a grown-ass man in the NCAA championships, and everybody saw it for what it was, a complete and total farce, I thought that a lot more people would, in the political arena, say this is ridiculous. But Democrats somehow have painted themselves into a corner that they just had a bill that all it said was, if you get taxpayer funding, you should compete against the gender on your birth certificate. Piers, 2 Democrats in the entire House signed on for that bill. Every Republican. Now, we are winning on this issue because it is an issue of common sense, which I think doesn't even really have a strong political association in the real world. According to the New York Times, 65% of Democrats don't think that dudes pretending to be women should be able to compete in women's sports. 94% of Republicans, 80% of the population at large. You just referenced that ad. Do you know who it performed remarkably well with? It ran in every football game that I watched.
Yeah.
Black men, Hispanic men, white moms, all of them watched it and said, yeah, this is ridiculous. And let me hit you with identity politics, Piers, because you said you can be anything. I actually want to push back, and I think it kind of goes to how broken Democrat identity politic beliefs are. Do you remember Rachel Dolezal,
yes,
the woman out in Spokane, Washington, who was the head of the NAACP, said she was a black woman? They ended her. They canceled her. I think she's on OnlyFans now. I don't know who's the market there for fake black women, but maybe she's making a living. I hope she is. I'm for capitalism. But think about this. Democrats now, as party orthodoxy, believe if you claim to be a different race, you are racist, cultural appropriator. It's unacceptable. If you claim to be a different sex, everyone has to believe it, and you're a hero and courageous, and there are poor young kids that are suffering.
Well, Clay,
I tell you, man, I like Clay, man. He always makes a good, solid point. This guy, he's pretty awesome. He should be on more shows.
He thought he was a Jedi.